Phoenix Splash TV. It's no surprise that Shenmue is my favorite game of all time. It's funny how a game with so many different opinions can reach to the top of my list of favorite games. I was going through the internet one day trying to find out why it is people hate this game, but came to a very important question. Why the hell do I like it? You'll often hear that there are two kinds of gamers, ones that prefer fast-paced action games and the ones that are patient and appreciate RPGs. But I also like fast-paced action games. So why is it that Shenmue still rises above games like Street Fighter 3rd Strike, Virtua Fighter, and Grand Theft Auto? Well, I think I know the answer now. You have to go to its creator, Yu Suzuki, the only video game creator I know that doesn't really like video games. This has been confirmed in countless interviews. He doesn't make games. Look at it this way, Outrun wasn't a game, but games became Outrun. How many car cabinets do you see that followed suit? The same could be said about many of his games, but Virtua Fighter is the big one, I think. Look at any 3D fighting game and it's basically just a variation of Virtua Fighter. Each one has a Hakioken character, a Jeet Kune Do character, and a wrestler, etc. Many share the same moves from Virtua Fighters. Just look at Wolf and King, Law and Jackie. It's actually more of a ripoff than when SNK made 2D fighting games and people called those ripoffs of Street Fighter 2. I think Virtua Fighter is probably his most influential creation. Like I said before, Yu Suzuki could care less about what's popular. He just innovates, and as a creator, it's a responsibility to break ground and create innovations. I'm looking at you, music industry. Does Shenmue do this? Of course, it implemented QTE during long cutscenes, which many games followed suit, and it had many genres within the game other than just one. It's the most freestyle game I've played till this day. Did it have followers? Many argue that without Shenmue there would be no Grand Theft Auto games in the style that we see them today. Shenmue basically said, okay, we're in the real world, there's a phone, you can use it, there's a toy machine, you can buy toys, you can look at fruit, and on top of all of that, it had an intense fighting system that I thought was pretty cool. I really don't know what everyone else is smoking. Shenmue's biggest critique is the fact that it is slow-paced. Within Shenmue, you have to do many mundane tasks like the forklift and airing out books. But what if I told you there was a game that has more mundane tasks than Shenmue and is still praised more? That game is Grand Theft Auto San Andreas. I recently played the game and came to a conclusion that Shenmue has aged so much better. Now don't get me wrong, I like the game, but man, the missions are so boring. You have to drive long distances, often with barely any obstacles, just to kill a person. And that's it, that's a mission. That progresses the story. You get a toy plane, you have to shoot a bunch of cars and again shoot people. And the plane has terrible controls. And, there are some good missions, but most of them are pretty boring. The main focus of Grand Theft Auto San Andreas is the open world. You can buy soda, play arcades, learn new martial arts, like in Shenmue. You can also do all kinds of odd jobs, like become a taxi driver or ambulance driver. You can do a lot in Grand Theft Auto, more than you can do in Shenmue. But there's one thing I noticed about all of these activities. They're all extremely simplistic. The jobs pay so little that you actually make more money just killing random people. The arcades are nowhere near as fun as Shenmue's, but you can't blame Rockstar for that. The missions are terrible. The only thing that's fun in Grand Theft Auto is screwing around. You can make the main character look hilarious, but you have to do the missions to advance to new areas. After replaying both games, I came to a conclusion that Grand Theft Auto San Andreas is slower paced than Shenmue. I know, it's pretty wacky. Not to mention, when you fail a mission, you have to go all the way back to where the mission began, all because your target got out of sight. And many of these missions make you go really far. Sure, you can kill random people, but that gets pretty boring quickly nowadays. In Shenmue, all of its features are done with care. Everything feels polished. There aren't any glitches that you constantly run into. Sure, there are less things that you can do, but all the things that you can do are more realistic, authentic, and polished, and more innovative than San Andreas. I know many out there will disagree with that. But of course, Shenmue's graphics are way better too, and the argument against that is that Grand Theft Auto San Andreas' overworld is much bigger. But there are a lot of forest areas that have nothing in them other than a few ramps and some hidden weapons, while in Hong Kong it was completely crowded. But I digress, both are good games, so why was one treated way differently than the other? 2 words: sex and violence. When playing Shenmue, I can't really pinpoint what was the focus of the game. I would say the battle system, but apparently that's what Shenmue suffers from the most. But I think it's good that I can't pinpoint it. The game actually ages really well in comparison to other open world games made after it. Like I said before, everything in it was made with sincerity. The characters were amazing and the story was great. I think the main aspect of Shenmue I like the most is the replay value. It probably has the highest replay value I've ever seen in a video game. There are so many things to collect, the weather will change in the cutscenes, the choices you make will be different. For the longest time, I thought you could only name the kitten Mimi, but found out years later that you can name the cat the other names as well. There's a Mr. Yukawa scene you can unlock, there's a part where you can make Ryo stay up past his bedtime all the way till 3 AM and see the late night stores close. You can train Ryo differently, you can have different conversations with different people at different times, it's crazy. Shenmue 2 has even more things within it, which is even crazier. These games were supposed to be a big part of a series, and yet all of this attention to details were put into it. Every time I play Shenmue 1 and 2, it's a different experience. I'll hear characters say things I've never heard them say before. I'll even see scenes I've never seen before. There are so many things within Shenmue that you can totally miss. You could even raise a duck by making them fall out of a tree. It's crazy. I think ultimately that's why it's the best game ever made. You can play it for years on end and still find new things within it. You can analyze the story and characters to endless measures. Did I even mention the music? It's breathtaking. It's one of the best gaming soundtracks you'll ever hear in a video game. To be honest, if it did end at 2, it would have already given us more than most games give with tons of sequels. It's a masterpiece in my eyes. It's the little details that make it the most special. Ha, slow pace. I mean, is that really an insult? The Metal Gear Solid series has way more cutscenes than Shenmue, and those games get 10s all the time. So I'm sure it's not really fair to critique it like that, but that's just my opinion. You can hate Shenmue all you want and call Shenmue a bad game, but if it were truly a bad game, then there wouldn't be a huge fan base for it that successfully pledged for a sequel. And that's a fact. Shenmue 3 is going to be great. This isn't a developer that has released glitchy games. There aren't many glitches in Shenmue, and the ones that there are, you really have to try hard to get them. Not like San Andreas, where you have sex in a car with a prostitute and then realize, hey, there's an option to see what's happening in the car, and then you do, and they're just sitting there. That's pretty lazy. If Yu Suzuki made San Andreas, he would have showed the sex in the car. Now, what I'm trying to say is that Shenmue 3 is probably not going to have glitches right away at the start like most games that get released today. That's really terrible to see that every game that gets released has so many glitches. Like, how did they let that happen? And then they patch it up later. So, do you agree? Do you disagree? Am I completely wrong about San Andreas? Is that Bumblebee game better than Space Harrier? Leave it in the comments below. And don't forget to like/dislike, share, and subscribe. This is Game Analyzer, signing off.